Hello everybody, welcome to Humane at Home. So just as an example, we are definitely using our gloves and our masks, so we want you all to know that we're being safe. But in order for you to maybe hear me a little bit better, I'm going to have my mask off, but trust me, we are 6 feet apart. You're only going to see one educator from now on our Humane at Home segment, just so that we're making sure that we're following guidelines that are being put out there, so keeping everybody nice and safe. So it's Wildlife Wednesday. Welcome everyone. My name is Carly. I am the Project Wildlife Education Specialist, and we're super glad to have you joining us today. We have some really fun stuff to talk about, and you guys are going to get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes tour of some of our patients that we currently have in care. And so stay tuned, because they're going to come a little bit more towards the end of the segment. So don't leave early. You want to learn about them first, and then we're going to go ahead and go meet some of them as well. So before we get started, we have a super cool organization that was really amazing, that they are really helping out sea animals and shore mammals and all sorts of animals that are living in the ocean right now. It's called Shore Buddies, and normally what they do, they're promoting the cleanliness of our ocean. So they want to make sure people are picking up their trash if they go to the beach, that they're not, if they see anything that's laying on the ground, any of the plastics or any of the fishing line, they want to make sure that we're picking that up and keeping it safe for all of the animals that live along the shore or in the sea. So what they're doing now during this pandemic is that they actually have 5 different sea animals that they promote. So we have Steven Seagull, they have a dolphin, a whale, a sea turtle, and one more that I cannot remember off the top of my head. But right now, they have picked a few organizations, a few nonprofits that they're going to be donating their profits to. And Project Wildlife is one of them. So what we're doing now, if anyone who buys Steven Seagull, all those proceeds are going to be coming back to Project Wildlife, and it's really going to be helpful because baby season is still here. So just because everyone else is staying inside doesn't mean that those animals and baby season during springtime, we're still getting a lot of patients every day. So we want to make sure that we're still able to help these guys out in their daily care. And just so you know, we'll post the link to it as soon as this segment is done, but it's called Shore Buddies, but super awesome, my friends. And so today we are going to talk all about gulls, and we're going to talk about some ducklings, because we are getting ducks right now. But for gulls, my friends, believe it or not, there is nothing called a seagull. These guys are actually called gulls, but they live kind of by the sea. So us as humans would just kind of like put 2 and 2 together and call them seagulls. But some of these guys actually hang out by the bay. So would you call those guys a bagel, maybe? Sorry, my little joke. But basically, my friends, a lot of people are used to seeing these guys all around San Diego, all up along the West Coast, up into Oregon, into Washington. Western gulls are definitely one of our #1 gulls that we see here, and they have a very characteristic coloring that you guys will see. So they definitely have that white chest with the gray wings, and they have dark backs as well. And so I'm just going to show you a few little tidbits. Again, don't leave us quite yet, because we're going to get outside and see some of these guys, but this is basically their distribution, you guys. So you can notice that they are all along the West Coast. These guys are very common. They're one of the most common gulls that we tend to get in here at Project Wildlife. We do get about 5 to 6 different species, but for the most part, Western gulls breed here in San Diego, so we tend to see them a lot more than any of the other type of gulls. But we get California gulls, Humane gulls, just a few more others as well, but the Western gull is definitely the most common. What you guys are going to notice is that we'll show you real quick is that coloration that they have. Super, super easy to see and know what a gull looks like. So one really cool little thing to notice is this red dot on the gull's beak. That's actually the spot where the babies start to peck. They will peck both mom and dad, and that is the sign for when the babies are hungry. Parents, if you would like to teach your kids on how gulls feed their children, be my guest. It's not the prettiest, but basically the gull parent will regurgitate their food, and then that will be the baby's food and get them all nice and strong. Thankfully, gull season isn't here quite yet, but it is coming upon us. So we want to make sure you guys are nice and ready if that does tend to happen. So these guys like to make their nest sometimes on the ground, but they really will nest sometimes offshore along rocks, maybe under some buildings sometimes. They're usually going to lay about 1 to 3 eggs, and they'll incubate for about a month. So both mom and dad will sit on top, will sit on the nest and incubate those eggs. And then after about, like I said, about 30 days, these guys are going to go ahead and hatch. And these guys have this really awesome coloration of their eggs. It's really supposed to help them camouflage or blend into their environment so that people don't necessarily go and pick them up, or there's no predators that are attracted to them. What's super cool though is that once they are born, they look like little chocolate chip cookies. So they are about the same coloring that the eggs are. And again, this is to help them blend in into their environment. Now, most gulls, most Western gulls, they have about a wingspan of about 120 to 140 centimeters. They can get about 800 to 1250 grams. And if these guys are lucky, these guys, Western gulls, can actually live up to 25 years old. Some of the things that they like to eat in the wild, as most of us have kind of come to know, that sometimes they will go after trash or they'll go after our food. These guys are very used to being around humans now because we tend to provide a lot of resources for them. But some of their natural foods that they're eating out there, it's going to be things like clams or squid, sometimes mussels. These guys will go after zooplankton. They're basically going to eat anything that's on the ocean surface because they don't really like to die like some of the other gulls. One really cool thing that these guys do though is that if they do get clams or mussels, something that comes in a shell, they'll take it, they'll fly really high up in the air, and they'll drop it on the ground to break open that shell and get their food. So if you ever go across and you're on the ocean and you see a bunch of like shells open, it might be an area where the gulls use that area to go ahead and break open the food for themselves. So these guys are super special, my friends, although we might kind of consider them as pests, and I think we're all used to the noise that they make. And again, another really cute fact about this little stuffed animal. They make the noise of the Western gulls too. So they're very communicative with their family. These guys are always chatting around and looking for new resources and for more food to be available wherever they're at. That's the gulls. We're going to go meet one in a minute as well. But before we go, we're going to talk real quick about mallard ducks. Ducklings are all over. Mallard ducks are one of the most common ducks that we tend to see here as well. These guys are all over the United States. So the purple means year-round. The blue is going to be where they hang out, but they're not breeding. And then the breeding is kind of takes up on that top part of the United States. So mallard ducks are one of the most common ducks that people normally see. These guys do have that very characteristic coloring. The boys are prettier than the girls because they have to work harder to get the girlfriend. So they have to look nice and beautiful. And actually what these guys will do is that when they're nice and colorful, they actually start to get into their mating pair around October, November, and then they're going to start breeding around this time of year. So we're right here in the beginning of April. They'll usually stay together, so they are monogamous, but after the female lays her eggs, she's the only one that cares for the eggs. So she does the incubating and she does the feeding and taking the babies around with them. They can have an average of 8 to 13 chicks at one time. And these guys will usually incubate for about a month. One of the other things that's really interesting about these guys is that the mamas are really good moms. So mom will sometimes make her nest in maybe not the most desirable area. Sometimes it's right outside of the bank. Sometimes it's in the middle of the parking lot where just the little trees are at. So one of the things that we really try to encourage people is that if you see a mama duck starting to nest in a really inappropriate spot, If she's just building that nest, you can go ahead and try to scare her away. You're gonna have to be consistent because usually ducks just have one thing on their mind. They're very single-minded, and so they're just thinking about nesting and having those babies. So you're gonna have to be consistent with trying to encourage them to nest somewhere else. But once she's laid those eggs and she's in her nest, you cannot touch them. We just suggest to enjoy it and hopefully watch the life as it goes. Give it about 6 weeks or so. Ducklings are born precocial, so it means they have their feathers and that they're ready to start swimming right as they're born. Usually mom will sit on them for at least overnight and get them dried out, but they're ready to go in the water that very next morning. If it's raining out like today, it may take a little time for them to get to the water, but they're ready to start eating. Mom just needs to teach them on what type of food to eat. They're called dabbling ducks because it means they just dabble on top of the surface. But these guys can go for anything such as small plants or small fish, grass, leaves, algae, sometimes insects. Sometimes they'll actually swallow a piece of gravel or a pebble, and that will actually help them with digestion and start breaking things up for them. The babies will usually stay with mom, kind of depends a little bit, but they're probably going to stay with mom for about 6 to 10 months until they're fully grown and ready to be on their own at about 14 months of age. Some people get really nervous because they'll see a mama duck walking along with her babies, and you'll say, there's no water around, where is she going? She knows exactly where she's going. I don't know if anyone, they call it like herding cats. I've never actually tried to herd cats before, but I have tried to herd ducklings, and it's very difficult. So if you see a mama and her ducklings and you think they're in the really wrong spot, she can walk with her kids up to 2 miles to their appropriate location. So we like to say mama duck knows where she's going. Just try to make sure that if you're with a dog or you have outdoor cats, try to keep them away from the ducklings. If they're trying to cross the road, you may want to try to help some of it and maybe just gently corral them. But one thing that's really important is that you can scare mom really easily. Humans are the biggest predators, so we don't want to scare mom away because then she may abandon her ducklings. So you can kind of gently corral them in the location you want them to go. But like I said, they know where the water is, and so they're taking their kids to the spot that's appropriate for them. So if you can let mama do her thing and you just stand back, and if you guys remember those 4 L's that we talked about maybe 2 or 3 segments ago, it's the look, listen, learn, and then leave alone. Because if we can leave them alone, my friends, although we are considered essential here at San Diego Humane Society and Project Wildlife, if we can leave those wild animals out there in the wild where they're supposed to be, that's going to be the best thing for them. Obviously, if you see that they're sick or injured or they're truly orphaned, go ahead and bring them in. But if you don't know for sure, please refer to the website, sdhumane.org. You'll find Project Wildlife, and there's a ton of resources on there for you. So again, if we can leave them out in the wild, we're trying to keep our staff as minimal as possible here at the shelter and at Project Wildlife, so we want to make sure that we can try to help them out as well. But of course, if they're sick or injured, definitely bring them in. And so, for those of you who've been waiting, thank you for listening to me talk. But we're super lucky today because we are coming live from the Pilar and Chuck Bahde Wildlife Center today. So this is now, we've been in this center for a whole year now, and this has really helped us just give the patients the best possible chance of getting back out to the wild as possible. So I'm going to have you guys follow me, but it looks like we might have a question coming in.
How long does the average duck live?
How long does the average duck live? That's a really great question. So they actually have a rather longer lifespan than I thought. So average is 3 years, but they can live up to 20 years old. So kind of crazy. Not everyone's as lucky, but 3 years is typically average for these guys. So what I want to do, let's go ahead and walk outside. So again, this is usually off limits to the public just due to the sensitive nature of these patients. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time out here, but we do want to give you guys a chance to see some of these really interesting animals. our gulls, and we have some ducklings here with us today. So come on in. I'm gonna stand back and let Dariel, our camera woman, take a closer glimpse at this guy. So this is a western gull. He just took a bath, so he just came out to this outdoor caging. As you can see, he has a nice pool right here. He's getting some sun. This guy's has a little bit of neurological damage. We think he might have been hit by a car, which is kind of common for gulls, as you kind of see them maybe flying a little bit lower than some of the other seabirds or shorebirds out there. You can see that really distinctive red dot on his lower beak. So right now we're monitoring him. We want to make sure that he's able to eat on his own, that he's able to preen and do just normal gull behavior. So he's one of our patients in care. Usually by the time they make it out to these outdoor cages, this is a really good sign, because we want to see how they're acclimating to the weather, see how they're doing, and then fingers crossed, he'll be able to get released sometime soon. Come on down with me. Again, I'm gonna kind of get out of the frame here. But here you're gonna see some ducklings, and you're gonna see them dabbling as well and preening themselves. So unfortunately, mom was scared off with this clutch right here. So the babies came into us. They were actually really, really tiny when they came in. So now they're actually getting a little bit bigger. Now they're out here getting some practice time on that dabbling. They're learning how to work around each other, and we're trying to teach them that proper food to eat. One little thing I want to make sure we tell you guys is that a lot of people go to those lakes and they try to feed the ducks bread. But I don't know, when you guys have been going to the grocery store lately, if you've seen any ducks going in there and taking out the bread, but bread is not a common thing for ducks to eat. So it's actually really difficult for them to digest it. So things like cereal and crackers and chips and bread, it's really bad for ducklings, my friends, and ducks in general. What we really want to maybe try to feed them, if at all, we encourage people not to feed wildlife. But if you say, Miss Carly, I can't go to that lake without feeding the ducks something, you can feed these guys bird seed, maybe some frozen peas or corn, mealworms, chopped lettuce and greens. And really, that's going to be the better thing for them. But again, if you don't have to feed them, that'll be the best thing for them. I think we have another question coming through.
Someone asked if you can feed ducks popcorn.
So the question is if you can feed ducks popcorn. I would go against it, you guys, just because, again, it's not a part of their normal diet. So anything that you would think that they might get out in the wild. So again, probably bird seed is going to be your best bet to feed the ducks. But again, one of the things is that we just don't want wild animals to get too used to humans. I don't know about you guys, but I've gone to a few of the lakes around San Diego, and as soon as I walk up to that water's edge, the ducks come rushing out at you because they think you're going to feed them. This can be good and bad. So for the animal, we really, really, really want the animals to stay wild, not become too accustomed to humans, because when something like this happens, if COVID-19 breaks out and you can no longer get to that lake or that pond to feed them, we want to make sure that these animals know how to take care of themselves, find food on their own, and not rely on human beings as much as possible. One such example, my friends, is this guy right down here. You're going to see he's a full-grown male mallard duck. He has angel wing. An angel wing is actually a type of disease that ducks can get. It's a tissue disease, and sometimes angel wing can be caused from malnutrition. So they're not getting the proper food they're supposed to eat. Angel wing can be corrected, but it can be really difficult for wildlife rehabilitators to do that. And angel wing has sometimes been linked to having them eat too much bread when they're young ducklings. If they eat too much bread, it means that they're not eating the food that they're supposed to be eating. If they don't get the proper nutrition, then they can develop angel wings. So again, another really important reason not to feed ducks bread. Try, if you have to, bird seed, lettuce, if you have to. But again, we just don't want to make sure, we want to make sure that the animals stay wild. One more question.
Someone's asking where they can find the duck, duck food or bird seed?
Where can you find duck food or bird seed? Any of your local stores that maybe sell grain, or like, I want to say like horse feed stores. I'm sure you can find bird seed at your local Petco too. You just want to make sure that if you're feeding them bird seed, it's just basically the seed. You don't want all that additional stuff. Sometimes there's fruit, sometimes there's extra treats. Again, that's for maybe birds that are living under human care, but just general plain old bird seed if you're going to the stores looking for bird seed to buy for these guys. And then we have some really little itty babies. So these guys just came in. This is a mama and her brood of ducklings. Everyone is nice and healthy. They were just brought in because a really good Samaritan found them, but didn't know, she didn't know that there was any water around, so she thought they might be lost. So they brought them in just under good measure. Mama kind of had a limp, but she got a clear bill of health. So now they're out here with mom. They're learning to swim, they're dabbling, and who knows, maybe within a week or two, all of these lovely babies and their mom will be released right back out to the wild. One more question.
Is angel wing curable?
Angel wing is curable if they get into us at the proper time. There is a whole slew of things that have to go on behind the scenes to help them, but it is curable, but we have to make sure that we get them in when it's kind of in the early stages.
Someone else is asking, how big do ducks grow?
How big do ducks grow? I have my fact sheet here with me today, you guys, because you guys are really good at doing this. So usually ducks, I want to say these guys are, let's say they're around 2 to 3 pounds and their wingspan is about 3 feet. And then the males are, let's see, I think the males and females, I want to say the females are a little bit bigger when it comes to ducks, unlike with the gulls. So these guys, I would say they're probably maybe 2 weeks to 4 weeks of age, the little guys right here. They're going to stay with mom for quite a few more weeks before they're going to be ready to go on their own. One super cool fact though is that these mallard ducks, they can fly up to 40 to 60 miles an hour. Super interesting. And the oldest mallard found in the wild was 27 years old. That is one lucky duck. So again, my friends, thank you guys for joining us today. Don't forget Shore Buddies. These guys are an amazing organization donating their profits to different nonprofits who are doing wildlife rehabilitation all around the country. It's super amazing. We're going to share the link to their website at the end of this feed. Again, if you have any questions concerning wildlife, whether or not you need to jump in and intervene, please go to the website. You can give us a call as well. It's just that our phone line's a little bit busy right now, so the website's probably the best place for you to go. But we are here for you if you guys have questions about wildlife. Again, it's baby season, so be on the lookout. If you're trimming trees or doing any gardening, you want to be on the lookout for baby rabbits or baby squirrels. The season is here though, my friends. I believe we got in 44 patients the other day. So we are still busy here at Project Wildlife. But our staff is coming in. We're keeping our social distance of 6 feet. We're wearing our masks and our gloves so that we keep each other safe as well as keeping the animals safe as well. All right, my friends, thank you so much. Come back on Friday at 2 p.m. We look forward to seeing you.